Hello, Dental Team listeners. This is Kiera, and today I have Brittany Stone, the one and only no BS Britt. And today I'm asking her to play Hygiene Britt. If you didn't know, it's
Hygiene
actually
slash
fun.
manager Brit. I feel like it's like a combo.
It is. And it was funny because yesterday Britt and I actually we were heavy in dental A team mode. And then I called Britt back probably like a minute later and I said, "Hey Britt, can you be hygiene Britt for me? Because I have a hygiene question." So Britt, welcome to the show today. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great. How does it feel to be hygiene Brit? Like go from, I mean, you're dental team's operations manager, you're also a consultant, like all the things. How does it feel to like go back into that clinical space sometimes?
I mean, hygiene are roots, man. Like that's the that's the beginning. So it feels to me. I know you guys haven't known me as like hygienist. Like, yes,
It's
I know
true.
hygiene stuff, but you never worked with me clinically as a hygienist. But to me, I'm like, yeah, that's me.
I'm glad because it is fun. And I actually was talking to Jason last night after you and I had chatted. And I said, Jay, it was actually really fun to talk to Britt about like where we started. I mean, I'm dental assistant Kiera, office manager Kiera, treatment coordinator Kiera. No one's known me as that in dental A team. And so I'm just going to throw it out there because you never know who's listening to the podcast and who would ever like take me up on this idea. But if there's someone out there that would love to allow dental A team to come in for one day and go back to our roots. So Britt, we probably have to do this in Arizona because I think you're only licensed in certain
Yeah,
states, right?
currently still just Arizona, my
Okay,
my
so
OG
Arizona,
state over here.
so Arizona offices. If you know someone in Arizona, all of our crew will be there in March, and there might be a few other times. But I think it'd be funny to see a dental team takeover. Like, how would it be for Tip to be an assistant, me to either be an assistant or a treatment coordinator, Britt and Dana to go back into hygiene, and just see like how it would run. So if anybody's open to letting us come back into our like put the scrubs on and just see, like, shoot, we'll cover for a day for you guys.
It would be like a good and wild time all at the same time because I think we're all a little bit more maybe assertive than we might have been in some of our olden days in those positions.
I agree. And this is why I want to see like what would dental team do if we were all put into one office at one time. So anyway, if you're interested, email me hello@thedentalteam.com. This isn't a passive ask. This is like, I really think it'd be so fun. We've talked about it so many times. Like, what would it be like? So, hey, if you're ever interested in dental
Usually,
team,
usually what we do is we say if we could all only be one role, so no doubling up on roles. This is the game Kier likes to play.
I
Who would be
do.
which role within the office is usually how this goes. And
I'm
yeah, not to say we don't get along. We would have a fantastic time, but you'd get a lot of ideas that day would run quick. I'll tell you that.
well, and I'm like, believe it or not, I would actually not go for office manager. So I'm out on that. Shelby will probably take on office manager role, even though she's never done it. She'll do great. But it is kind of funny. Tiffany, we were talking the other day and I said, Tiff, I remember being a dental assistant and I had hours of time sitting there, like root canals, crown preps, where I just thought of all these ideas. And Tiff's like, I literally would hate if you actually went back to that and had that much time to think of ideas. And I said, fair enough. So anyway, throwing it out there, Britt and I have a good time, but truly, I do think it'd be fun if an office allowed us to come and just like see what would happen if all of us went back into it. You might hate it. Don't worry, doctors, you can still keep like one or two main assistants. Like we won't fully do it, but like we think we'd be the A team. I'm just curious if we'd actually be rated A, B, C, or D going
Put our
back in
money
as a
where our
whole
mouth
team.
is. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. But on that note, pivoting into what we want to chat about, Britt and I want to get on the podcast, and I really want Britt to be on this podcast with me because Britt is a hygienist, and believe it or not, I have had actually some clients ask Britt and Dana, like, "Hey, if you ever want to like leave consulting and come back to hygiene, hey, poo poo on you. That's terrible. Don't do that. We don't poach your people. Don't poach ours." But it is interesting because I do know that hygiene is a hot topic. And so I thought, Britt, if we came on the podcast today and we actually chatted about, all right, let's talk about hygiene. How do we get hygienists? How can we hire? How can we attract? What are maybe some out of the box thinking today? And also doing on both sides of the coin, because I do know we have hygienists that do listen to the podcast as well. So shout out to you listening and educating yourself and understanding kind of the predicament the doctors are in, because it's this constant, like I do feel over the last 4 years since COVID, the hygiene pay range has like just like escalated up this ladder, which is making it hard for practices to stay profitable, which then leads to, if the practices can't maintain profitability, I do actually wonder, and this is kind of just my thoughts, and I'm sure Britt, you've thought of it. will there come a point where hygienists are actually asking for too much that dentists say it's not worth it for a hygienist? I'm just going to hire a dentist. So I'm just like, just so we know, and I want hygienists. So it's going to be kind of like a really open conversation. My goal today is that none of what we bring ever should be weaponized against people. So there might be some ideas discussed. Hygienists, if we're talking about certain things, to me, this is not a zone where you can go and take this to your doctor and demand certain things. And doctors, if that happens, like it sounds like that's a great opportunity to coach that hygienist out and bring someone else in. And vice versa, hygienists and doctors, like doctors not weaponizing and saying, hygienists, we're so high, I can't afford to do this, or things like that. I think really understanding the dynamics of where we're at, I think is going to be a good conversation. So, Britt, are you hygienist Britt? Welcome to the scene. Hello.
Thank you. I'll put that hat on. And it's all in fairness, right? I think that's what it comes down to in any working relationship, and even when it comes down to talking about things like compensation, like it should be a conversation for both sides, right? And sometimes there's things that can be done, sometimes there's things that can't be done, and sometimes performance wise it doesn't warrant being done. So I think that's just the mindset to go into it with always when it comes to those conversations. Is it is a conversation. It should be a conversation, not demands back and forth, and finding the best, fairest solution.
Yeah, absolutely. And Britt, I'm so glad that you're open to this. And Britt, the reason I love her in operations next to me, like I feel like her and I are really good yin and yang. I think Britt and I truly, we have very different personalities. We have very different mindsets. We have very different pieces. And I think when you can bring those two perspectives to the table, I'm very strong entrepreneur. I'm very strong business. I'm very, like Britt will tell you, I come in very strong on those, and Britt will come in very strong on team. And I think that to have someone like that in your corner to me is invaluable, because it allows Britt and I to really, like we say hash, like we really do go back and forth, knowing that our ultimate goal is to land on what's fair and best for the business, what's fair and best for the patients, what's fair and best for our team, what's fair and best for every player in the scene, in the arena. And I believe when you can have these conversations, you can get there. So Britt, I want to just kick off. It's something that's come up, and I'm just curious from your perspective as a hygienist, because you are a senior hygienist. You've been in the ranks. You haven't been there as a brand new grad. And there's some hygienists who are feeling like these new grads are coming out asking for quite a lot. I've actually been told that a lot of the hygiene teachers are actually telling them to ask for higher amounts. And I'm really curious, like, do you feel that there should be ranges where if you've been out of school for say 0 to 5 years, it's kind of like, this is your range. If you've been out of school from 5 to 10 years or 10 years plus, because some of those senior hygienists do feel like, hey, I've been in here, I've been running the ranks. And then I'll give you the flip side that I also think of, but sometimes my senior hygienist might not be as up to date as my brand new grads out of school. So there's this, like, there is an experience piece of you've been with the patients longer, but sometimes, like, I know certain hygienists don't do as much perio, whereas new grads do more perio sometimes. So again, I'm not here to judge the hygiene world. I'm just curious, Britt, from your perspective, being a hygienist who's been in the realm for a while, what's your take on, like, should there be ranges based on experience, or is it on performance? Like, what's kind of some metrics that you see that would be beneficial when we're looking at compensation to be fair across the board?
Yeah, I mean, and fairness is a big thing to me, right? So, and this will be probably to some, maybe not the most popular opinion, but I do think it's the fairest. And no matter the role, right? Whether it's a hygienist, whether it's an assistant, whether it's a front desk, whether it's an associate coming in, I'm big on, it comes down to skill set and what are they able to do, right? What's their skill set in the position? How are they able to perform? What things can they be responsible for and own and make sure that they get done? Now, with a new grad, would I probably be a little bit conservative on what they start them out with and say, hey, here's your path forward, right? Once you show me XYZ, you're running on time, you're making sure your diagnostics are quality, all those things, then this is your path forward as far as compensation goes. But I do think it should be a skill set based compensation, not just like tenure based compensation. I'm not a big fan of tenure overall, no matter like where it is. The thing that I will say along with that, though, is to make sure that our owners, right, whoever's making those decisions on compensation, that we keep it all fair. So I think sometimes some of those more senior ones, maybe they've stayed at a rate for a really long time and maybe haven't been increased according to inflation or what they're paying other people now. And so, like, that piece needs to be fair as well. So make sure, I'm a big fan of tiers. What's the skills? And make sure that it stays within those tiers. And yeah, if you've been with me for a long time and you've got a full set of skills for hygiene and you do really well, you should be at the top end of that top tier. And if not, then we need to have a conversation and talk about it and see how we can get you there. Because that's ultimately my goal for any of my team members, is how do we get you performing to the top of your skill set, your ability, or your license. And with that should come like fair compensation that comes along with it.
So, okay, I really like that. I've got two follow-ups on that. One is, what are like set skill sets that could be ranging someone up? Are we just talking perio? Are we talking laser? Are we talking like, what is it that is specifically for hygiene, the skill set? And I do love, I hope you guys all asterisk that, like every person should be performing at the top of their license. So that's follow-up question number one. Second is going to be about a compensation question. So what are those skills that you feel will range them up exponentially?
Yeah. So for me, like basic skills, running on time. If you have an anesthesia license, you're doing your anesthesia if that's allowed within your state. You are chart audits are good. You're getting everything that needs to be done, that your charting is complete. You're getting all your diagnostics done. You're coming prepared to huddle. You're being a team player. All of those things are kind of like my basic level stuff.
Should they, like, interjecting real quick on that, should they be hitting a certain production amount, or is it more just those? So like, what is the production amount that they should be hitting in like basic skill level for before they even move on?
Yep. And I think whatever your basic goal is, I'm usually, depending on the area, depending on your PPO fee for service, right, there's going to be a little bit of a difference, but I'm usually like a 12 to 1500 is usually around kind of like my base, depending on if you're PPO or if you're fee for service, kind of on that upper range. And then as you I think, get more confident with perio, have those conversations. Perio percentage rate, that's case acceptance for perio percentage rate, like would be a next level to look at. So not only are you having the conversations, right, you can do it, but how effective are you at educating patients and advocating for them to get the treatment done that's needed? So this is where a few more like specific metrics are going to come into play. So perio percentage is going to start to come into play, looking at like jumping to that next level. I'm also going to start looking at how well are you setting up doctor and teeing up doctor for treatment. That's going to be my mid-range, that they need to be able to have those conversations, tee up doctor, be a partner in that conversation. So that's kind of like my mid-range ones. And my high-range ones, I'm going to tie in, yeah, what's your case acceptance coming out of your room? How well are you supporting the doctor and advocating for those patients, having conversations? Because at some point with hygiene, right, there's clinical skills. And with those, right, doctors should be checking, sure, check my perio from time to time on my charting to make sure we're aligned. Yes, if I'm missing stuff that I shouldn't be missing, then like absolutely those should be things that are talked about and would keep me in that like basic pay range if I'm not doing well at my job. But to get up into that advanced pay range, it comes to a lot of the soft skills. Are you adding in that scan, right? Are you on board? Are you advocating for the practice and getting things done? Are you talking about treatment? Do you have good case acceptance coming out of your room? It's a lot of those like soft skills and showing initiative, instead of like, no, that's too much, I'm not going to do that. Like it's almost like a difference in personality and initiative once you get to those higher range. And you see those hygienists that are just rock stars, and they're like, yep, they will help out. They are a team player. Yep, I can get that done. I've got time to do it. They are having the conversations. They're supporting the doctor really well. That's my top tier. That's what I ultimately want everyone to be.
Amazing. And I think that actually really helped in like that 1500, that 1200 range. Like there has been a model out there of like 3 times their pay. And I'm just curious, Britt, is that even a realistic number from your perspective now, of 3 times a hygienist pay? I do say for fee for service, usually at a 4.5 times their pay, but with PPO schedules and with the new rate of hygienists coming out, do you still feel like 3 times their pay is fair?
I think it is a great starting point, right? There's across the country, and this is where like you can pull the economics of it into it, right? Depending on the area, depending on how many hygienists there are, like that's something that I think have seen across the board that impacts higher ranges or lower ranges, right? That's the way a free economy works. Welcome to it. So, right, depending on the area, I would say yes, that is, everyone should be shooting to hit that. In some of our areas where, it's a little bit more competitive, or depending on, we'll throw it out there, state laws, different things that have to be offered, right? That impacts the price and how expensive it can be to pay a hygienist. And I'll say to my hygienist, you guys are worth it, right? Especially you're that top tier hygienist, like you guys are worth it. But from a business standpoint, there's like, we gotta stay profitable at the end of the day. And so I do think that 3 times fee for service up to like 4 times pay is a great place to start. And if we are not there, then we need to start looking at other factors. Is it reasonable? Most of the time, yes, 100% it is. Some cases, depending on the area where there's like those shortage, those higher ranges, like it's a little bit more of a struggle. And that's where it comes to the conversation of, all right, hygiene or associate. And we've definitely had those practices where it's like, hey, for what I'm paying this hygienist, I can have an associate who can not only do hygiene, but can also do treatment. Which direction should I go?
I agree. And I think the hygiene world, like making sure that it's cognitive of that too, because I think it could be a dangerous zone where without trying, hygienists actually like work themselves out of the marketplace. I agree. I think a hygienist is such a valuable player on the team. And so just making sure that like we're cognitive of that. And I love that, Britt, you bring that from a hygiene perspective. I will also say though, I don't just think it's fully on the hygienist, and Britt, I know you agree with this completely, that looking for that 3 times, and instead of saying like we can't get there, let's look to see how could we get there. So it has the office actually looked at their fees, and are we making sure that our fees are competitive, that we're negotiating with the insurances. This doesn't mean you have to drop your insurance plans, but it does mean we need to be very effective with it. Looking to see, can we add in laser? Can we add in PRP or PRF? Can we add in some of those adjunct services? Are we adding fluoride? Are we getting all of our x-rays on the right series? Are we billing out the correct comp exams for it? Are we looking for those additional pieces and looking for like, what are all the codes that we can bill out within hygiene? Of course, not over diagnosing things out or billing things out, but I think like, let's also look at medicine. They bill for the gauze, they bill for the cotton, they bill for all these things. And I'm not here to say like nickel and dime your patients, but I am here to say, I think there's starting to become a world where we've got to start being more proactive on what we do bill out to insurances to hit the rates that the hygienists need to be producing, as opposed to just doing what we've always done. So I think like as an office collectively working in conjunction with a hygienist, let's not just throw our hands in the air and say like, oh, they're too expensive, there's no way they'll hit it. No, that's not true. There's actually a lot of hygienists who are being paid those higher ranges, and they are producing 3-4 times their pay. I have hygienists in less affluent areas able to hit that. And so it's kind of like the 4-minute mile. People thought it couldn't happen. Well, I think sometimes it's telling us it can't be done. We actually find ways to make that true, rather than saying, hey, other offices are doing that. Let's get creative and let's work together and figure out what we can do. Yeah. So Britt, I want to
make a quick plug on this, because I know I threw out there, like, there does come a point where like sometimes we sit there and we contemplate of like associate or not. The hygienist in me, do I want doctors doing hygiene? No,
I don't either. And I'm not even a hygienist.
No. Do doctors want to be doing hygiene? No, they don't want to, right? So like, it's not an ideal solution, but when it comes to a business being able to survive and stay profitable and keep running to take care of patients and provide livelihoods for everybody, like that's the business side of my brain, that it's like, sometimes those are things that we have to contemplate and see what's the best decision moving forward.
For sure. And I'm glad you put that, because the ultimate goal is to not replace hygienists. The ultimate goal is no. But I think it's like, look at other businesses. Do you think other businesses wanted to convert to AI? The answer is probably not, but due to necessity of profitability, like to me, that becomes a survival skill. Like, is this business going to live or die? They're going to find ways to live. That's a natural human tendency. And so I think it's like, let's partner together. Let's find the solutions. I even have some practices who have elected to go hygiene, like no hygiene in their practices. And so knowing that, like, but again, this is just getting scrappy. This is doctors just like, we have to find a way to survive.
And out of necessity, if they can't find one, right? Like sometimes that's kind of been the state that some of them have been in. So
for sure. So Britt, on that, we did talk about like baseline pay, and we talked about longevity of it. What happens when you have a seasoned team that has been there? And we've got hygienists. They love the practice. They love the things they're doing. Recruiters are pretty impressive these days. Like, I do feel everybody's being bombarded with other offers constantly. And it's like, you might be very happy, but hey, like sometimes dollars do count. What do you do for a practice when like these new grads are coming out, and let's say they're asking, because like right now I have a practice and the new grads like literally looking on Indeed all practices hiring right now are like $5 an hour more than what they're currently paying like their highest hygienist. Like, what do you do in that realm? Because like if you've got 3 or 4 hygienists, now I've got to increase everybody $5 an hour just to be able to bring one new hygienist in. I think this is where it's like this wave of constantly like chasing a number, but it's not just one person I'm chasing, it's multiples. What do you recommend for businesses and new grads? Because I'm like, if I tell this new grad, like, well, this is where we'll start you, I've got 7 other offices willing to offer this hygienist that they only need one hygienist. They can do it because the finances make sense for them. What do we do in those scenarios to help these practices out?
Yeah, I think having a community near you to know kind of what people are really getting paid, right? There will always be, especially in your more like city, right, areas, there's always going to be someone out there who could pay more. Mm-hmm. Right? There's going to be an offer on the table somewhere. I always say question that, know what you're getting into on those ones that are like real high from everybody else. But I think it's a real question of what are you ultimately looking for? One, with that higher rate, you better believe you're going to have to make your way, right? To make it worth paying you that amount. So that's going to be there. Also, what do you value in the people you work with and the type of things that are being done and the care that's being provided in practice? Not taking a hit at anybody, but I'm like, that's an overall, it's not just $1. Like, sure, you can go out and you just want to pick a job based on dollar. Go for it if you want. It's risky in my opinion. Look at the whole picture and see kind of what you're going to be living, because we spend a lot of time at work, right? It's a big part of our life, and we spend a lot of time. And I don't know, I take a lot of pride in where I work, so I care about the people and what we do. And I hope that's the same for our providers out there, for our hygienists out there. But I think take a look overall. And then I think when it comes to those rates, so have a community, know what like the actual rates are, not just the jobs that are out there and what people are getting paid. Make sure you're competitive, like 100%. The rates need to be competitive. And if you've fallen behind some, then like, yeah, we might need to see what we can do and see if we can start to get back within the range of the market to stay competitive. And then that also, I think, brings confidence in knowing you're offering something fair, right? So if I'm like, if I know, hey, it's competitive, it's fair, we're a great place to work, I always want to get people in to come meet us, experience us, because again, it's more than just $1. If they're making a decision just off of $1, they're probably not the right person for me anyways. Mm-hmm. So I want to get them in, let them see the whole picture. And then, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, I can offer what I can offer and offer a path of like, hey, this is where it starts and here's what you can do moving forward and the potential. But we're getting to know each other. And I'll say this recently, especially for assistants as well, because I think it's the similar scenario in assistant world, is some of the doctors that know they're fair, they come in, they're confident, have people who like them and they're like, okay, not to say it always happens, right? It won't always, but it's more likely to happen instead of just chasing a dollar amount and trying to like outbid someone. So I think still be confident in your moves. Don't jump too fast. Make sure you're competitive. Make sure you're allowing people to see the whole picture of you. I'll add to that. Make sure you're actually a good place to work along with that so that you attract people. Because I think trends, and you'll see articles and research out there, money matters. And there's always going to be those people where money's their top priority. But life, I think these days matters to people a little bit more.
I would agree. I think that's something that's a shift of I think money used to be the currency that people were going after. And I think now it's time and lifestyle that is the new currency. And so realizing that and recognizing that, Britt, let's say an office, the going rate is higher than what you are really like able to afford in your practice. What's your take on offering like a lower base, but commission from a hygienist? Like, I don't know how it lands for a hygienist. Is it like, well, I want the guarantee of like knowing that I can, let's say it's $5 different between offices, but this office is really struggling, but they can offer you the commission base. How attractive is that to a hygienist? I have my opinions, but I'm not a hygienist. So I'm just curious from your stake, what you hear from colleagues in the industry, because I know you stay very connected to the hygiene world. What are you kind of hearing around that?
Yeah, I think it's a super fair model. I know when I was managing, that's the model we were off. I want you to know that you can count on something that's reliable, right? So that's where I do like having a base that's very reasonable, that's very fair, that is an amount that easily hygienists should be able to like produce and make that and cover themselves. But for those who do like hustle, right, they're not going to be like, oh well, I've got an opening, I'll just go home, or like, oh, I'll just like chill. Like they want to work, they want to keep people on their schedule, they want to be supportive of the team. They should make more. And so it's even just a fair from multiple hygienists in an office. I'm like, yeah, I'm working hard, I should make a little bit more than the person that's kind of slacking off a little bit. And so I like that model to where one, you know what you can count on because there's that base there. And then, yeah, commission is going to be ultimately whatever you want it to be, right? Like that's where you've got some control. And if it's a commission based on production or adjusted production or collections, whatever route the doctor ends up going, as fees rise in the practice, right, that's you naturally kind of build in that increase over the years as office fees change.
Fair. That's a good point. And Britt, I have so many more questions I want to ask. I think for today, keeping it here, I really also think one thing to plug on the commission that I think, Britt, you and I have done a really good job. Like mad kudos to you within our company, because we do offer our consultants base in commission. So I think like we can actually speak to this model pretty well. But something I really pride ourselves on is we actually go and look at real numbers. I don't want to be going for my best hygienist and offering off of my best hygienist. We want to find an average between like our lowest producing hygienist and our highest producing, because I would rather set a clear expectation with that hygienist coming in of like, if you do basically like bare minimum, this is what you'll be making. And then if you choose to like go more, which there are opportunities, this is the range you could do. And literally when we do offers, we literally show a hygienist, or like in our instance, it's a consultant. Here's what it is. Here's what the averages are. And for me, I think that actually makes me way more confident going in, because I'm not offering the highest end. We have consultants that produce a lot more than other consultants. But I don't want, because that just sets an expectation for that hygienist coming in of this is what I think I'm going to be paid. And then when I'm not, they get angry with you, versus it being like, this is where I think it's very fair. This is very realistic. This is the time frame realistically I think you can hit it. This is an average day. Here's our actual numbers. This is an actual hygiene schedule. So that way I really do think that that will make you more confident when offering. If you can't offer, say, that $5 more, or you want to bring people in and maybe you're a little bit less than that, you don't want to raise your entire hygiene team. And again, hygienist, it's not because I don't want to raise you. Like, I just want to make that super clear. As a business owner, I want to pay my entire team exponentially well. Like truly, this is like my heart of hearts. Like Britt knows this. I'm constantly looking for like, how can we raise people? How can we do it? I also know as a business owner, my job is to make sure I keep the business profitable, because if I don't, I've actually hurt every person that we serve in the community of patients. I've hurt our entire team of being able to afford it. And also I don't want to be stressed as a business owner. Like fully, I love you and I want to pay you. I also want to be able to sleep at night and not constantly stressing of, do I need to take a second mortgage out on my home? So like just understanding it's a business, it's a person, it's a human. But I think be fair with your numbers that you offer. And Britt, I do want to do another episode. I'll just tee it up of what do hygienists feel about assisted hygiene? Because it is a model that's starting to come as popularity of not being able to find hygienists. Is it something of we like it, we don't? Also, I know there's conversations around, do we shorten hygiene appointments to be able to see more patients as insurances aren't reimbursing as much? So I definitely want to like tee it up of having a few more hygiene conversations. But Britt, on this, thank you for giving the perspective of like the ranges of how to pay and what you feel about base plus commission. Hopefully we were able to give you guys some tips on how can we attract these people. I think like you said, Britt, having a great place and a great reputation within the community, having longevity of team members, it's been shocking. Britt and I've been doing interviews, and I don't know if you picked up on it, Britt, but the last, I think 2 or 3 interviews we've done, one of the questions they've asked is, how long's your longest team member? And can we ask why they've stayed? It's been shocking to me that that's a question that has come through. It's been consistent. 100%. And I'm thinking it's because people really want to work in places long term, and there's so much jostling that I think they're also wondering, are employers keeping team members too? So just note that's been a very random comment that's come through on our last and we're talking like yesterday. We just had an interview yesterday. That question was asked, so it's very real. But Britt, any last thoughts you've got? You want to wrap up today? I appreciate your Brittany hygiene today coming to the table for the perspectives.
No, I think it's a good conversation and agreed on running numbers, and especially if you're wanting to maybe like transition within your practice, right? Hygiene wanting to propose it, or doctors wanting to like switch over so that it's a much more sustainable model for you. run the numbers and see what it looks like, right? That's reality. And I'm with you on like low end, high end when it comes to hiring. Worst thing you can do is set expectations you're not going to meet.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Well, Britt, thanks for being on the pod. You guys, we appreciate you. We will definitely come back. I know there's lots of questions. I know this is hot right now. So Britt and I will definitely podcast again about assisted hygiene, what we do for shrinking hours. Like, is that even doable from a hygienist perspective? Or is that like, no, there's other solutions? Because I know everybody right now is just trying to find solutions for the pickle that we're in, wanting to maintain and really pay these hygienists what we believe that they deserve. So Britt, thanks for being on it. And for all of you, if we can help you and your hygiene team, if these are issues you're struggling with, if you're like, I am just like hitting my head against a wall, I don't really know what to do, reach out. That's what we do. hello@thedentally team.com. And as always, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Dentally Team podcast.